gas tanks were leaking, and he thought that he wouldn't be able to get back to England. And if we went to Sweden, we would be interned for the rest of the war. Sweden was a neutral country, but they were kind of friendly to the Allies. And whether we were Allies or German, they would just make you stay there for the rest of the war, which for me would have been great. You know, one mission and the war is over. But for the other fellows on the plane, they were wanting to go back home. It was their last mission, 25th mission. So they got the fire out, and then they checked the gas, and they thought they had enough gas to get back to England. And so off we go. We go back across Denmark, across the North Sea to England, and we land on the coast. And when we landed, we were met by American officers that came out with a bottle of scotch to give us. They figured we went through a pretty hazardous area and mission, so each one of us got a couple shots of scotch if we wanted it, you know, to so-called calm our nerves, which I drank the scotch, but I was feeling all okay even so. That was my first educational mission.
And the people on the plane, because it was their last mission, were willing, instead of being interned in Sweden for the rest of the war, were willing to risk flying back to England and running out of gas, and possibly, you had mentioned, crashing into the English Channel, which was wintertime. I mean, that's how bad they wanted to get back home.
Well, they thought that they could radio ahead, and even if they did crash land into the English Channel, there would be helicopters sent out to immediately, or within a few minutes, be able to pick us up out of the water or off the wing of the plane, because the plane would probably float for a few minutes before it sunk. So they decided they would take that chance, but thank God we did make it back to England.
What caused the rupture in the gas tanks and the fire in the cockpit?
Well, it's anti-aircraft fire, flack. When an anti-aircraft shell explodes, it goes into maybe hundreds of pieces, and the hundreds of pieces fly all through the air, and that's what causes planes to be blown up and shot down. But
so your first mission is rockets firing at you, German pursuit planes after you, ruptured gas tanks, possible crash landing, and that was all in your first mission.
That was my educational mission. But I was flying with 3 different crews because I wanted to get the 25 missions over as quickly as possible and hopefully go back home. Before I'd go on a mission, I would get blessed by the priest, of course, receive communion, and I was all set to either be successful, or if I did die, I figured I'd go straight to heaven, you know. So I was ready to face death, and that's what you had to be in order to fly these kind of missions. But what we have spread out here is some of my mementos. I've lost a few medals that I received. The reason I got the Purple Heart was on my 12th mission. The plane was shot down, and that was a harrowing experience.
Could you tell us some more about some of the missions, including especially the 12th mission? That's the one where you were finally blown up out of the sky.
I have a book here that tells all about the 100th Bomb Group, and it lists all the missions and what happened on these various missions. I'd I'd flown several missions over Berlin, which were very tough missions, but I survived those missions. When over Berlin, the anti-aircraft shells would come up like 50 at a time, and the whole sky would turn black. But thank God they weren't very accurate, so we never were shot down over Berlin.
And those were on some of the missions between your first mission and your 12th mission?
Right. The first mission was Rostock. It says here it was only one man lost. Apparently he was the guy looking out the window, maybe got hit by flak. That could have happened to me. The next mission was Augsburg, where no one was lost, where they say we destroyed one enemy aircraft. Next mission was Berlin, where no one was lost, thank God. Next mission was to the coast, where we were bombing submarine pens, and no one was lost there. Next mission was Friedrichshafen, and thank God no one was lost there. Next mission was France and Dijon. No one was lost there. Next mission was Floto Manville, wherever that is, I don't know. We didn't lose anybody there. Next mission was Berlin, and we didn't lose anyone there. So I was flying with pretty lucky guys. Next mission was Weiserines. No one was lost there. Next mission was Berlin. No one was lost there.
What number are you up to now?
I guess I'm up to number 11. Next mission was Lyon. It must be France. No one was lost there. And the next mission was the tragic mission where my plane was shot down. And it says here 10 men were lost. So we were the only ones that ruined that mission by being shot down. Some of the missions here, there was a March the 6th mission I was not on. That was before I got there. There was 15 B-17 shot down. 15 in one raid, 150 men lost. So all these missions were, some were luckier than others. But, this last mission where I was shot down was over Liege, Belgium, and it was considered a milk run. Oh, Mike's pointing to the B-17 here.
Yeah, tell us about the plane. Show us where you sat. And
okay, my son-in-law, Ron Schulga, when he was first married to Polly, decided he would do me something nice, and he built me this model of a B-17 plane. And over the last 14 years or so, with kids playing with it, it lost some of its parts. Like the propeller's missing here, and what else is missing? A ball turret is missing there. Machine guns are missing here. But anyhow,
that's not unlike a lot of the planes that actually landed.
Well, that's true. This looks like a real warplane coming back from a mission.
And that's one in pretty good shape compared to what we've seen on some of the TV clips with B-17s missing part of the wing, half the tail, humongous holes in the sides. Those were actually a miracle plane for its time to be
it was
to be
a
so.
great airplane. But any airplane can be shot down. Well, the Bombardier, he sat right up here in the nose. I sat right behind him at a desk on this side. The escape hatch, there's a little door right here. I had a machine gun sticking out the wall here and another machine gun sticking out the wall here, which could shoot in a forward direction. It was locked so it couldn't, wasn't able to shoot down my own plane, thank God. This was where I did my celestial navigation, this little bubble here. The Bombardier had twin 50 caliber machine guns, remote controlled from this position. The pilot and co-pilot sat up here in the front. Behind them was the radio man and the flight engineer. And behind them was the waist gunners, one on either side. Then we had a tail gunner in the back. So we, like I said, we were doing pretty good on the mission to Liege, Belgium. It's supposed to be what they call a milk run, which means an easy mission. We were not going to fly over Germany. We were just going to cross the channel, drop our bombs, turn around and fly right back. We're going to drop the bombs on the railroad yards in Liege, Belgium. I could still see what happened that day. We were flying at, I guess, 20,000 feet altitude, and it was about 8 flak anti-aircraft guns down there firing barrages. And I still remember I saw a burst off to the left, 1,000 feet. And the next burst was about 500 feet. Then the third burst hit the right wing. And I felt the jolt of the shells hitting the wing. So I knew that this plane was badly injured. So I had a pencil in my hand I was writing with. The Bombardier was looking at me, and I had the pencil in my hand, and I threw it up in the air, and I waved to the Bombardier, "Let's get ready to jump." Now we were on oxygen, and on intercom. I hadn't heard anything from the pilot, but I reached down to try to open the escape hatch door, which means you pull the hinges off and kick the door off and you're ready to jump out. Well, I tried to get a hold of the lever to pull the pins, but the plane went into a spin and I was pinned to the floor with the centrifugal force. So the last thing I remember, I couldn't even move. I was just pinned to the floor. And I go unconscious. The next thing I remember, I wake up and my eyes open. I look up into the blue sky and I think, gee, I'm dead and I'm in heaven. Because everything is so beautiful, you know, the clear blue sky. And as my eyes cleared a little bit more, I saw B-17s way above me. So I figured, well, this can't be heaven with all those B-17s up there. I must be still on Earth. I look over my shoulder and I see the ground about 10,000 feet below me, and bombs are exploding. Then I look down to see if I have my parachute. And thank God I had my parachute hooked on one hook. It was a separate parachute that you were supposed to keep by your side until you're ready to bail out, and then you pick it up and you hook it onto 2 hooks and you bail out. Well, I made a practice of whenever I was on a bomb run and there's a chance of being shot down, I'd have this thing, the parachute, hooked onto one hook. So thank God I did, because when I was blown out, I had the parachute with me. And I tried to hooked the second hook. For some reason I just couldn't get it hooked. And I remember that they said it would work on one hook. And I'm falling now right in the area where we dropped the bombs, so I didn't want to go down into that area. So I figured, well, I'll try this thing and see if it works. So I pulled. This is my first parachute jump, by the way. We never had any training in parachute jumping for some unknown reason. So I pulled the ripcord, and up comes a little chute, and the little chute pulls out the big chute, and pretty soon you're floating on down towards the ground. Now I'm looking around, I see another chute off in the distance, one more chute, and then I see a body pass me, just goes zooming by, and then all of a sudden I see parts of the airplane. The plane must have went into 1,000 pieces, actually. When it exploded, the gas tanks exploded and blew the Bombardier and myself out the front of the plane and killed, I guess, most of the other people, the pilot, co-pilot. And the tail gunner, he was coming down in the tail section. Apparently the tail section stayed together a little bit. And he broke his arm and his leg getting away from the tail section. But, so here I am floating on down. I see pieces of the burning airplane coming past me, and now I am frightened, very frightened, because if a piece of the burning, flaming airplane hit my parachute, it would set the parachute on fire, and I'd drop like a rock. But thank God it didn't hit me. But as I'm falling, I hear rifle fire. And so the Germans on the ground were using us for target practice, shooting at us. But they missed, thank God. And now I'm looking down to see where I'm going to land. I see rooftops. I see a electric transmission line. And I see trees. So I remember they say if you're going to land and hit a wire, you're supposed to cross your legs. But they didn't tell you about electrocution. I didn't even think about that, you know. I crossed my legs, but that last 100 yards or so, you fall so fast, I never had a chance to uncross my legs. I hit the ground with my legs crossed, and I injured both my ankles. You hit with such a thud that you almost knocked temporarily unconscious. But as I'm trying to struggle up, I see I'm right close to the outskirts of this village, this Liege suburb, I guess.
In Belgium?
In Belgium.
Which was surrendered to the Germans.
Well, the Germans had captured Belgium and occupied it. But the Belgian people, I didn't realize, they came rushing over to try to help me to get the parachute off, and if I would have had 2 or 3, 4 minutes, I'm sure they would have helped me escape into one of their houses. But a bunch of German soldiers, maybe a half a dozen or more, came running up, and they chased the Belgian people away and captured me. But there was one man in civilian clothes that didn't run. When he didn't run, they tried to grab him. Then when they tried to grab him, he did turn around and ran behind a building, and I heard shots being fired, so they may have shot the poor fella. So I realized right away, you know, that this is dangerous. These guys are pretty tough. They play pretty tough. So it was, I think, around 6 of them, and they had one bicycle. So they asked me to get on the bicycle and pedal out in front of them. You know, they said, get on the bicycle and ride. Well, I thought, well, they're pulling a trick. They want to shoot me in the back if I start riding in front of them. But I had injured my ankles. I told them I couldn't pump the bike because I hurt my ankles. So they put one fellow on one side of me, soldier, and one soldier on the other side of me, and they're pushing me on the bicycle. And we go maybe just a few yards that way, and they decide that that's no good. So they walk out The first big truck comes along, open back truck, they stop it, Belgium truck. And they told me to get in the back of the truck. Well, right at this point, there's a real sweet young 14, 15-year-old schoolgirl, well-dressed. She comes over and she kisses my hand. And she's a Belgian gal. She realized that I was a captured American soldier, I guess, an airman. So right away they think there's something funny going on between her and me. We're passing messages or something. So they take her and they put her in the front of the truck and me in the back of the truck. And off we go down in the heart of Liege, Belgium. And then now it's lunchtime. We dropped the bombs about 11 o'clock, I guess, and now it's 12 o'clock. And all the Belgian people are out, you know, like shopping, whatever. And every time we come to an intersection and the truck stops, the Belgian people that are there are all waving to me, you know, and asking me, where are you from, you know? And meanwhile, the Germans are pointing their machine guns at the Belgian people to keep them away from the truck. But this one Belgian lady walks up to the truck and she says, I am not afraid of them. They can shoot me, I don't care. She said, where are you from? I says, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She says, I have relatives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I said, oh, that's great. So off we go to the headquarters where they're doing the Heil Hitler salute, you know, Nazi flags all over the place. So they take me in there for a few minutes, and then they decide, well, since I'm an airman, I should be sent out to the local airfield, German airfield. So off they send me out in a truck to the local airfield, and so they give me a cot to lay on. Meanwhile, I hadn't had any lunch or any dinner. I'm starting to get a little hungry, and I haven't taken off my shoes because my ankles were swelling, and I was afraid if I took my shoes off, someone would steal them, because the German soldiers, their shoes had been worn and resoled and worn and resoled, and their shoes were really bad shape. And I had these brand new GI shoes that were great shoes, and I knew if I would have taken them off, they would have stolen them, but I didn't want to take them off. I said my excuse was that my ankles were swelling, which was true. So meanwhile, these German soldiers had never seen an American soldier before, and they're coming in and feeling my clothes, you know, and trying to, you know, be a little bit friendly, just to see what an American looks like, you know. And so I kept telling them that I'm hungry, you know, no supper, no. So the fellows felt sorry for me, and he got me a canteen of cherries. That was my dinner for the night, canteen of cherries. So the next day oh yeah, during the night, the RAF come over and bombed the airfield, by the way. So I'm saying, gee, I'm going to be killed by the RAF here bombing the German airfield. But thank God they didn't do too much damage, at least didn't hit me. And the next day they take me to St. Gilles jail in Brussels, put me in solitary confinement. Well, any place they took me, I would just lay down and go to sleep, because I was so tired from flying with 3 different crews, maybe 2 or 3 missions a week, that I was very tired, and I just lay down and sleep. Then they'd interrogate me, and they want to know the type of airplane I was in, name of the pilot, co-pilot, all the other crew members, and I would never tell them anything, because we were told, give them your name, your rank, and serial number. That's all you can give them. I should give them. Well, that's all I would give them. And they kept threatening that they were going to shoot me for a spy. Well, after 1 or 2 days like that, then they said, okay, let's go. And I hobble up the steps out into this back courtyard, and there's a big red brick wall, a couple German soldiers standing there with machine guns. I see a panel truck, and I see a stretcher and a body laying on the stretcher. So I think, well, gee, they must have just shot that guy, and they're going to shoot me. but they didn't shoot me. They took me over to the body on a stretcher, who happened to be the tail gunner from my plane. When he saw me, he says, "Hi, Lieutenant Hay." And I saw him and I smiled, so right away the Germans knew that we knew each other. They put him in the back of the truck, me in the front of the truck, and off we go down the road. Now there's no doors on this truck. And the fellow driving the truck is blonde, well tanned. I was blonde, pretty tan. And the fellow driving the truck says, "Jump." Tells me to jump. I said, "Jeez, jump. If I jumped, I wouldn't even know where I was or where I'm going. What is this jump business?" So I look behind me, and here's another fellow right behind me, a young fellow about my age, blonde, tan, could have been my twin, you know. He's sitting there or kneeling there back there with a pistol pointing right to the back of my head. If I would have made the slightest motion to go out that door, jump out the door, out of the truck, he would have shot me. So I kind of laughed, you know, so it's just, you guys are being funny, you know. I wasn't really scared, but after I think about it, I should have been. They take me up to the hospital, local hospital, where the Bombardier Murray Lirette was. He had a chunk blown off his rear end. They took him in to patch him up, and when they brought him out, I realized that, okay, I'm not the only one that's alive. There's 3 of us. So out of 10 men, 3 of us survived, and the other 7 died. And I have a picture of our crew taken in Kearney, Nebraska. The Bombardier ended up with his teeth wired together. It's missing from the picture. The pilot, he was killed in the raid. The co-pilot, I don't know, he disappeared somewhere along the way, and we got a new co-pilot who was a great guy, buddy of mine. And this is the tail gunner. He survived. This is the pilot, Jack Hunter. He died. The Bombardier, who should have been here, is missing because he ended up in the hospital with his teeth wired together. We got a new Bombardier. This is me. I was a navigator. This was a tail gunner. This was a flight engineer. This is a waist gunner. This is a radio man. And this is a ball turret man. I think he was another waist gunner. There was 2 waist gunners. But I thought that all these fellas were dead, were killed in the explosion. Now, when you go on a mission, before you go, the navigators, we have our little critique. The pilots, they have their critique separately. I guess the enlisted gunners, and they have their critique. And you all head out to the plane. You don't really go out as a group. You go out almost like individually. And when you get on the plane, you're not too sure who's on the plane, except that once you start talking on the intercom, you realize, you know, you're with your own pilot and co-pilot. And so I thought all these fellas were killed, but later on I found out that Sam did not fly that day. Neither did Ernest Medhurst, who was the ball turret man. He did not fly that day. So I now send Christmas cards. They send Christmas cards to me each year, and someday we're going to get together and celebrate our survival. But the person who informed me of all this was a niece of the ball turret man who was killed. And she did some investigation to find out who all was on the plane. And then by corresponding with me, I found out, okay, Sam and Ernest are still alive, and she had their addresses. And so I got in touch with them, and they got in touch with me. She knew where the Bombardiers was living, Murray Lirette. My address for him was Yuma, Louisiana, which is south of New Orleans. If you look at the map, there's nothing south of New Orleans, but that's where he lived, in the bayous. And after the war, he moved to a different area, so when I used to write to him in Yuma, Louisiana, the letters must have got lost in the mango trees or wherever. So finally...
How many years after the war did this niece of the Bombardier help you discover that a couple of the guys were even alive?
Well, that was about 25 years after the war that she got in touch with me, and then I got in touch with these fellas. Now we've been corresponding ever since. And as you know, I get Christmas cards from this gal who did this research and got us all together. So someday I might even meet up with her, I don't know. But where was I? Oh yeah, I'm now heading to the prison camp. And Murray Lirette and I were officers, and Herbert South was an enlisted man, so Furman went to one enlisted man camp, and Murray Lirette and I were sent to Stalag Luft III. And there's been quite a few books written about Stalag Luft III. This is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another book called Return to Sagan, about Stalag Luft III, where I was. And another book I just bought, Escape from Terror. Tells about the terrible things that we had to go through from Stalag Luft III, later being moved to Nuremberg, and then to Moosburg, which was really pathetic, the whole thing. Another book called Target Berlin, which is a pretty interesting book.
Uh-huh.
Another book concerning Stalag Luft III was one called Clipped Wings. It tells all about Stalag Luft III, which was an officers' camp. And there was thousands of American officers and British officers in these camps. It was almost like when you're in training, you go from one place to another, and you meet some old friends that you knew from before. So when I got to Stalag Luft III, I started to meet people that I had trained with, was in 100th Bomb Group with, and it was almost just like another step in our education. But anyhow, it was a bad step. But when I was in Stalag Luft III, I kept a diary of some of my activities, which are in these two little blue books. I also produced a little prayer book for myself, because we did a lot of praying, even in those days. I never had a doubt that we, the United States and the Allies, were going to win the war. Someday I would be liberated. And the only time I doubted that there was a possibility that we may not win the war was one day Luftwaffe was showing off a bit, and they flew over our camp with jet airplanes. Now, this is another thing that they never told us about. They never told us that the Germans had jet airplanes that could fly faster than sound. When I saw these jet airplanes, German jets flying over, I said, oh my God, they have something we don't have. And those jets could shoot us down as easy as pie, you know. But thank God that they were not able to produce those jet airplanes in fast enough, in large enough quantities. And later I found out that Adolf Hitler, who always got involved, made another bad decision, that he wanted those jet airplanes used for bombers instead of jet fighters. So as a bomber, they didn't do too well. They would have done much better as a pursuit plane, but the Luftwaffe was held back from doing what they should have been doing. But thank God that they didn't, because we would have lost a lot more airplanes, the United States and the Allies, Great Britain. But what was prison camp like? Well, when we got to Stalag Luft III, we got a big sack for a mattress cover, like, and we were told to go and fill the mattress cover full of wood shavings. So you filled the thing full of wood shavings, and boy, it was nice, soft. For the first couple of weeks, it was easy to sleep on. Now, you put in on a, we had triple bunks, and there were no springs, it was just slats, about 8 slats. Each slat was about 3 inches wide. So you laid this mattress cover full of wood shavings on these slats, and after you slept on it for a few weeks, the wood shavings started to crumble, and pretty soon you were just like you were laying on wood slats. You know, you had to put one under your head, one under your shoulders, and a couple under your butt, a couple under your legs. So they were not too comfortable. But anyhow, that was not the worst part of it. You also got a cup, a ceramic cup, a bowl, maybe a plate, a knife and a fork and a spoon. I still have my knife and fork with the Army swastikas on it somewhere. I think Mike is heading out to look for it. But if you ever broke your plate or your knife and fork and spoon, you never got another one. We were officers and all that, you know, but we were not given much advantages like the German officers that were captured by the Americans. They were treated royally. Mike has my spoon and my fork with the swastikas on it.
I won't be able to zoom in on the. Won't be able to zoom in on that.
Okay. So anyhow, I was shot down May 11th, 1944, and this is springtime, and there was 15 men in our camp, in our room. There was thousands in the camp. I was in the west compound, and the area was, the trees were all cut down. There were stumps in the ground, and we were told if we cleaned up the stumps, dug the stumps out, that we were allowed to put up volleyball nets or softball, make a softball field. The Red Cross and the Salvation Army were sending in athletic equipment, but we had to assemble it. And to dig, we had no tools. All we had were tin cans and things. Thank God the ground was sandy soil and it was easy to dig even with a tin can. So here we are, American officers, digging with tin cans in order to set up our athletic equipment, volleyball nets and softball field. And I was lucky. I was one of my buddies in the room was a fellow who was older than me, but he was a athletic instructor in a high school. His name was Kelly Palumbo. I still send cards to him. He was not in my plane, but he ended up in the prison camp, the same room with me. And he was my instructor to some extent on how to play volleyball. So out of this barracks of 250 people, I got to be one of the chosen 6 people to play volleyball. Thankful to Kelly Palumbo as my buddy and my teacher. And I got pretty good at softball. I read a book called Release from Nervous Tension by Dr. Fink. I recommend that book to anyone because it tells you how to relax and concentrate and get more brain power utilized and become a better athlete. How to be calm so that if you're up at bat, you can see better and you can hit the ball better. Anyhow, I was one of the better batters in our softball league. And things weren't too bad, actually, even though it was real, we weren't treated extra good. We were surviving with Red Cross packages, food from home. The Germans would give us black bread, had no wrapper, and if you didn't toast it very well, you ended up with dysentery. So you had to toast the bread. Everything was fairly good, I guess. There was 15 men in the room. We didn't always get along 100% good, but wasn't any real arguments, bad arguments. We never had any fist fights or anything. A lot of disagreements. We were great playing hearts, I think. Hearts was our #1 pastime. Plus, we were able to get a few books to read, thank God. And so we had a little fun. It was we would take a shower, keep clean. It was very primitive, but it wasn't super bad until come around January of 1945, when the Russians started to move in to the area where we were. We were in Sagan, which is close to the Oder River, which is between Poland and Germany. I guess we were 50, 75 miles south of Berlin. And, but we were fairly close to where the Russians were advancing. Now, the Germans didn't want to surrender us to the Russians because they knew that the Russians would immediately put us into the army to fight again against Germany. And they would use us as a force against Germany, so the Germans didn't want to surrender us. Plus, we were valuable as bartering material later on. If they had to barter with the United States for release of their prisoners, for release of us, whatever. But at any rate, we were told a couple weeks in advance that we were going to evacuate this camp. Now, it's January in Germany. It's very, very cold. It's almost like the blizzard we're having here in the last few days. Close to zero. Snow 3 feet on either side of the road. And so we were told to prepare to walk in towards central Germany. Well, I had saved some long underwear, wool that my folks had sent me packages. The 2 or 3 packages got through, thank God. And some of the clothing that the Salvation Army sent in. So I dressed pretty warm in layers. I ended up with a French overcoat somehow, and a helmet liner you pull down over your ears. I have one lieutenant's bar to indicate that I was American lieutenant. Otherwise, I just looked like a regular old POW that could have came from anywhere. And the first thing we did was broke the beds down and made sleds. And we figured that we'd travel as a 15-man group and take turns pulling the sled. And before the camp broke up, a couple of our guys went down to where they knew some food was, and they picked up a 5-gallon, maybe 3-gallon tub of ersatz honey, and picked up about a 30-pound slab of lamb, I guess it was, uncooked. And we piled all this on the sled, along with all our packing things we were carrying. I carried this big comfort that I'd made with cut up paper in strips, put it inside this sort of a casing, perilous, like a mattress casing cover. And I made myself a real nice warm cover for when I was in the prison camp. But